the look that stopped the room. The night was alive with golden lights and restless whispers. It was one of those evenings when Hollywood gathered under the same roof. A charity gala filled with stars, business leaders and cameras waiting to capture the perfect moment. People laughed, champagne glasses clinked, and flashes from photographers lit the corners of the ballroom like sparks. Yet, for all the glitter and sound, there was a moment when everything seemed to slow down, as if the universe itself held its breath. That moment began when Keanu Reeves walked into the room. He was dressed in a simple black suit, nothing loud, nothing demanding, but his presence carried weight. There was something about his quiet humility that always made people stop. He wasn't the loudest voice, he wasn't the one chasing attention, and yet, in a room full of noise, he was the one people noticed. He moved with his usual calm steps, offering nods of respect, gentle smiles to those who greeted him, but his eyes were searching as if waiting for something or someone. Then it happened. Across the crowded room he saw her. Sandra Bullock stood by a tall window, the city lights shining behind her like a painted backdrop. She wore a dress the color of midnight, her hair loose around her shoulders, her smile warm as she spoke to a small group of guests. She had always carried herself with grace, a balance of strength and kindness that people admired. But in that moment, she seemed to glow even brighter, as though the room itself had decided to frame her in light. Keanu stopped mid-step, his eyes locked on hers, and though the distance between them was wide, she felt it. Her laughter faded. Her words caught in her throat. The crowd around her seemed to blur, the sounds of the gala dimming into silence. People noticed. Whispers began to spread. What was happening? Why had the easy rhythm of the night shifted? Cameras turned, eager to capture whatever this was becoming. Sandra tilted her head slightly, her lips parting in surprise. Keanu's gaze was not heavy, not demanding. It was filled with something deeper. It was the look of recognition, of memory, of a bond that had never faded. It was as if time itself had folded, bringing them back to a place only the two of them could remember. Sandra's heart raced. She had seen him countless times before, on sets, at events, in private moments of friendship. But tonight, the look in his eyes carried weight she had never felt. It was not just admiration. It was honesty. The silence between them stretched long enough for others to feel it. Conversations faltered. Glasses stopped midair, and all around the ballroom people turned to watch. The cameras clicked rapidly, flashes sparking like fire. But still Keanu did not look away. The crowd began to murmur louder. What was happening between them? Was it something new? Was it something old resurfacing? No one knew. And then, without hesitation, Keanu began to walk toward her. Every step felt like thunder against the marble floor, though he moved with the same calm grace as always. Sandra's breath caught as he drew closer, her pulse racing in ways she hadn't expected. Her smile wavered, then returned, softer this time, touched with something vulnerable. When he finally stood before her, the air between them felt charged, alive. For a moment neither spoke. Their silence spoke louder than any words. The entire room leaned in, waiting, watching. And then, with a voice steady but filled with quiet emotion, Keanu said, "Sandra, it's been too long." The simplicity of the words shocked the crowd. It wasn't a grand declaration. It wasn't a public performance. It was real. Raw. Filled with history that only the two of them truly understood. Sandra's eyes glistened as she answered softly, "Yes, it has." In that instant, the gala no longer belonged to Hollywood, to the cameras or to the flashing lights. It belonged to them. Two souls standing face to face, surrounded by noise yet caught in a silence that spoke of something deeper. Respect, kindness, and perhaps something more that had waited quietly for years. The look that passed between them that night would be remembered by everyone who saw it. But for Keanu and Sandra, it was only the beginning of something no one else could have predicted. Whispers in the crowd. The air inside the ballroom shifted after that moment. People leaned toward one another, whispering, their eyes darting between Keanu and Sandra as if trying to decode what they had just witnessed. Some thought it was romance, others said it was friendship, but everyone agreed. The look between them had carried weight. Keanu and Sandra stood side by side now, their smiles polite, but their hearts restless. Cameras flashed again, capturing the two of them like a scene from a film. Neither of them had planned this. Neither had rehearsed it, yet it felt like destiny had pulled them into the center of the room. "You surprised me," Sandra whispered, her voice soft enough that only he could hear. Keanu's lips curved into a faint smile. Maybe I surprised myself, too. Their words were simple, yet the undercurrent was heavy. Years of friendship stretched between them. Years where timing was wrong, where life had led them in different directions. But tonight, under the glare of chandeliers and eyes filled with curiosity, it was as if the universe had chosen to push them closer. They moved to a quieter corner of the ballroom, away from the cameras, though eyes still followed them. Sandra held her glass tightly, her fingers trembling just slightly. "Do you realize what you've done?" she asked, half amused, half nervous. Keanu tilted his head, his voice calm as always. "I looked at someone I care about. If that shocks the crowd, maybe it says more about them than us." Sandra laughed, but there was a softness in her laughter, almost fragile. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not the actor the world adored, but the man she had known privately, the man who listened without judgment, who carried pain quietly, who gave without expecting anything back. "They'll spin this into something," she said, nodding toward the cameras. "Let them," Keanu answered. "The truth will stay ours." But truth, as they both knew, had a way of colliding with the world. Within minutes, social media began to explode. People posted clips of Keanu's look, of Sandra's reaction, of the silence that seemed to freeze the gala. Comments poured in, some cheering, some speculating, some insisting this was the love story they had always hoped for. Back inside the ballroom, the tension grew. Friends approached them, offering teasing smiles, curious questions. Sandra tried to brush it off with grace, but her heart was racing. She felt exposed, vulnerable in a way she hadn't expected. Then came the unexpected twist. As the auction portion of the gala began, the host invited Keanu on stage to speak. It was unplanned, but the crowd cheered until he agreed. Keanu stood at the microphone, his figure calm, his voice steady. He spoke about the charity, about kindness, about the importance of giving to those in need. His words carried the same humility he always brought, but tonight something else was present, an emotional depth that silenced the room. As he spoke, Sandra watched from the crowd, her heart tightening. She realized what had shocked her most about his look earlier wasn't just the intensity, it was the honesty. In a world filled with performance and masks, his eyes had carried no pretense. The applause erupted when he finished, but for Sandra, the sound blurred. All she could hear was the quiet beating of her own heart. And as Keanu stepped down from the stage, his eyes found hers again. The whispers in the crowd grew louder, but neither of them looked away. It was clear now. Whatever had begun between them tonight was bigger than either of them expected. The quiet after applause. The gala ended in a storm of flashes and chatter, but Keanu and Sandra slipped out before the crowd could corner them with questions. The city night was cool, the street outside filled with humming engines and the glow of neon signs. They walked side by side, their steps slow, their silence thick with unspoken words. Sandra finally broke it. "That was a lot." Keanu gave a small nod, his eyes focused on the pavement. "I didn't mean to put you in the center of it. I only meant to look at you." Her heart fluttered at the simplicity of his words. There was no performance in them, no hidden angle. Still, she shook her head gently. But the whole room felt it. They saw something we didn't say. Keanu stopped walking and turned to face her. "Maybe that's because there's something we haven't said." The honesty in his tone caught her off guard. Sandra searched his eyes, and for a moment the years between them unfolded. Late nights on movie sets, laughter over shared jokes, quiet confessions when the world outside grew too heavy. All those moments had built a bond, one that had never broken even as their lives moved in different directions. Before she could answer, a group of photographers spotted them. Flashes lit up the street, voices calling their names, demanding explanations. Sandra instinctively reached for his arm and Keanu stepped closer, shielding her with his presence. "Let's get out of here," he said calmly, guiding her toward a waiting car. Once inside, the door closed and the noise faded. The driver pulled away, leaving behind the chaos of the crowd. Inside the car, the silence returned, but this time it felt heavier, charged. "You know tomorrow's headlines will be about us," Sandra whispered, her voice low. Keanu leaned back against the seat, his gaze steady on her. "I don't care about headlines. I care about the truth." She turned her face toward the window, hiding the storm in her eyes. "And what is the truth, Keanu?" His answer came without hesitation. "The truth is that when I looked at you tonight, I wasn't thinking about the cameras or the crowd or what the world might say. I was thinking about you. Only you. Her breath caught and she stayed silent. Unsure if her heart was ready for the weight of his words, the car pulled up to her place. She hesitated, her hand on the door handle, then looked back at him. This could change everything. Keanu's eyes softened. Then let it change. Maybe it's time. Sandra stepped out slowly, her heels clicking against the pavement. She turned once more, their eyes locking again in the glow of the streetlight. Neither of them smiled. Neither of them spoke, but the air between them was alive with possibility. As she walked to her door, her heart raced with a truth she could no longer deny. The look he gave her at the gala had not ended there. It was still with her, still echoing in her chest, still asking the question she had avoided for years. And for the first time, she wondered if the answer she had always feared giving was finally ready to be spoken. The weight of silence. The following morning, the world woke up buzzing. Headlines flashed across every platform. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock shock Hollywood with one look, the moment that stopped the gala. What is really happening between Keanu and Sandra? Videos of the gala spread like wildfire, replaying the exact moment Keanu's eyes met Sandra's, slowing it down, magnifying every glance, every breath. Sandra sat at her kitchen table, a cup of tea growing cold in her hands, scrolling through endless notifications. She had faced the media before, but this felt different. This wasn't about a movie or a role. This was about her heart, about a moment she hadn't even fully understood herself. Her phone buzzed again. It was a message from Keanu. Can we talk? Not about the crowd. About us. Her breath caught. She stared at the words, simple yet heavy. And after a long pause, she typed back, "Come by tonight." The hours between morning and evening stretched long. Sandra tried to distract herself with errands, but her mind kept drifting back to the look, to his words in the car, to the possibility she had buried for years. When the evening finally came, the knock on her door was soft, almost hesitant. She opened it to find him standing there, dressed simply. No cameras, no stage, just the man she had known for decades. His eyes held the same calm, but tonight there was also vulnerability. They sat on her couch, the room quiet except for the faint hum of the city outside. Sandra broke the silence first. "You've started something we can't take back, Keanu." He nodded slowly. "Maybe it wasn't me. Maybe it was always there. Last night only showed it to the world." She looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers nervously. "We've been friends for so long. We've kept each other safe by keeping those lines clear. If we cross them..." Her voice trailed off. "If we cross them," he said gently, "then we face it together. Not for the crowd. Not for the headlines. For us." Her heart pounded. She had always admired his humility, his patience, his ability to carry storms quietly. But now, seeing him open, seeing him step toward her with words unguarded, it shook her. "I'm scared," she whispered. Keanu leaned forward slightly, his voice calm, steady. "So am I, but sometimes fear means the path is real, and I don't want to spend another night pretending I don't feel this." Her eyes filled with tears, though she smiled softly. "You always know how to cut straight to the truth." He reached for her hand then, gently, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. Their fingers intertwined, and for the first time, they allowed the silence between them to speak not of restraint, but of possibility. But just as the moment grew tender, a sudden vibration on the table broke the stillness. Her phone lit up, messages pouring in from reporters, from friends, from people demanding answers. The world outside was not going to let them keep this private. Sandra sighed, her thumb brushing over the screen before locking it again. "They won't leave us alone." Keanu's eyes never left hers. "Then let them watch. What matters is what we decide." The weight of silence filled the room again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was alive, pressing, asking them both to make a choice that would change everything. The choice the next days unfolded like a storm. Every news outlet replayed their every move, and social media exploded with endless theories. Some called it the love story the world had been waiting for. Others said it was nothing more than friendship painted into romance by eager eyes. But neither Keanu nor Sandra gave a statement. They stayed quiet, letting the noise rise around them while their hearts struggled to find direction. Sandra avoided the cameras, slipping in and out of her home with a hat pulled low. Keanu stayed the same calm figure he had always been, but those closest to him noticed a shift. He smiled less, spoke less, as if his heart was carrying a weight too heavy for words. Late one night, away from the eyes of the world, they met again, this time at Keanu's home. No gala lights, no champagne, no whispers, Only two people sitting across from each other at a small wooden table, the sound of rain tapping softly against the windows. "We can't hide from this forever," Sandra said quietly, her voice trembling. "The world won't stop asking." Keanu leaned forward, his hands folded. "Then maybe the question isn't what the world asks. Maybe it's what we answer to ourselves." She swallowed hard. "And what's your answer?" His gaze held hers, steady and gentle. "My answer is simple. I care for you, more than friendship, more than passing moments. I don't want to keep it buried anymore. But it can't just be me, Sandra. It has to be us." Her heart pounded at his honesty. Tears welled in her eyes. Not from sadness, but from the weight of truth she had run from for years. "I've always felt something, Keanu. But I was afraid. Afraid of ruining what we had. Afraid of the world twisting it into something ugly." He reached for her hand across the table, his fingers warm against hers. "The world will always twist. But kindness, truth, and respect, they don't change. And if we walk this path, we walk it with those things as our guard." Her lips trembled into a faint smile, her tears spilling freely now. "You make it sound so simple." He shook his head gently. "It won't be simple. It will be hard. But it will be real." The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the glass like the beat of their racing hearts. Sandra leaned back, breathing deeply. She had built walls around herself for years, walls that kept her safe but also kept her alone. And now, sitting across from him, she realized she no longer wanted those walls. She nodded slowly, her voice soft but sure. "Then let's stop hiding. Let's choose this." Keanu's eyes softened, a rare warmth breaking through his calm exterior. He gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "Then together it is." The choice was made not with fireworks, not with declarations shouted to the world, but with quiet honesty between two hearts that had waited too long. But even as they sat in that moment of fragile peace, neither of them knew the storm that was still coming. For while love had been chosen, the world outside was waiting with questions, with judgment, with challenges that would test their decision. Yet for now, in the quiet of the rain-soaked night, the choice was theirs, and it was enough. The storm and the light. The morning after their choice, the storm arrived in full. Headlines screamed louder than ever. Keanu and Sandra, more than friends. Hollywood's quiet romance uncovered. The look that turned into love. Paparazzi camped outside their homes. Reporters pressed friends and colleagues for answers, and every photo of them together was pulled from archives and reshaped into stories. Sandra sat on her sofa, curtains drawn, phone buzzing nonstop. Fear clawed at her chest. She had agreed to step into this with Keanu, but now the world's spotlight felt blinding. Every headline twisted her emotions into a spectacle. Her phone rang again. It was Keanu. She answered quickly, his calm voice wrapping around her like a shield. "Are you okay?" "Not really," she admitted, her voice shaky. "I feel like they're tearing me apart. Like this isn't ours anymore." There was silence for a moment, then he said softly, "Then let's take it back." Later that afternoon, they met at a quiet park. No cameras had followed them here, no lights flashing. It was just the two of them on a wooden bench beneath a wide oak tree. Sandra's eyes were tired, her shoulders heavy. Keanu looked at her with the same steady gentleness he always carried. "They'll never stop," she whispered. "We'll always be questioned." Keanu's gaze didn't waver. "Then let them question. We'll answer with how we live, with kindness, with truth, not with anger." She turned toward him, studying his face. "How can you stay so calm through all this?" He smiled faintly. "Because storms don't last forever. They roar, they tear, but they always pass. And if we hold steady, if we don't let bitterness win, we'll come out stronger." Her throat tightened, tears filling her eyes. "You always know how to make things feel lighter." He reached over, brushing away one of her tears with the back of his hand. "Not lighter, just clearer. What we have, whether the world believes it or not, it's real. And that's enough." For a moment they sat in silence, the leaves rustling above them, the world moving on around them. And in that quiet, Sandra realized something. She was no longer afraid. The weight of headlines, the sting of whispers, they were only noise. What mattered was the steady presence beside her, the man who met storms with humility and love. Later that week, they attended another public event together. When they walked in, the cameras exploded, voices shouting, demanding answers. Sandra's heart raced, but Keanu squeezed her hand gently. He didn't speak, didn't argue. He simply looked at her with the same honesty he had given her that first night at the gala. And once again, The crowd grew still, not because of spectacle, but because of truth that could not be hidden. In that moment, the world saw not two stars, not two headlines, but two souls standing together, stronger because they chose respect, resilience, humility, and kindness over fear. The storm had not broken them, it had revealed them. And as they left hand in hand, Sandra whispered to him, her voice trembling with quiet joy, "Maybe this was always meant to be." Keanu smiled gently, his eyes glowing with calm certainty. Maybe it was. And so their story, born from a single look that shocked the crowd, became something greater, a story of courage, of love, of choosing truth no matter the storm.